You can book this Delta One flight for 340,000 Delta SkyMiles and $6 in taxes and fees, or you can book the same exact Delta One flight for 50,000 miles and $6 in taxes and fees. That's a pretty big difference. In this video, I'm going to walk you through exactly how you can book a Delta One flight, which is Delta's business class, to Europe for 50,000 miles instead of the outrageous number that Delta is charging you. The way we're going to do this is use a Delta partner and book through a Delta partner versus booking actually through Delta. We'll take our credit card points, transfer to that Delta partner, and then book that Delta flight. If that sounded a little confusing, don't worry, I'm going to walk you through step by step on how to do this. If you don't already know, my name is Max and I help people maximize their airline miles, hotel points, and credit card points so they can travel more, travel better, and travel for less. Remember, if you like content like this, hit the like and subscribe button down below, and let's get started. Earning the miles and points for this redemption. The overall redemption we're going to do here is we're going to earn credit card points that will transfer over to Virgin Atlantic, and Virgin Atlantic partners with Delta, which allows us to book Delta flights through Virgin Atlantic. The great thing about Virgin Atlantic is that a ton of credit card points transfers over to Virgin Atlantic at a 1-to-1 ratio. That includes American Express, Chase, Citi, Capital One, and Bilt reward points. So from the American Express Gold, the Chase Sapphire Preferred, the Capital One Venture X, or even the Bilt MasterCard, and all those points can transfer over to Virgin Atlantic. If you're interested in applying for any of these cards, my links are down in the description down below, and it helps support the channel. So there's a lot of different options to earn credit card points and transfer them over to Virgin Atlantic, and the transfer times are usually typically instant, with the exception of Capital One miles. It might take 1 to 2 business days to transfer Capital One miles over to Virgin Atlantic. And so that's how you earn Virgin Atlantic miles to make this redemption. And as I mentioned at the top of the video, you need 50,000 Virgin Atlantic miles each way in business class to book the Delta One flight, which we'll get into more in the next section. So let's jump over to the redeem section. When it comes to this redemption, the key thing you need to know is flexibility. Flexibility is super important for this redemption because finding award availability can be a little tricky sometimes. Searching on the Virgin Atlantic page is kind of frustrating a lot of the times. And so I'm gonna be honest, it's not the best experience ever, but if you can find this deal, it's a really good deal. The reason why we're booking through Virgin Atlantic, not Delta, is that, as you saw at the beginning of the video, Delta charges a ton of SkyMiles for the same exact flight, where Virgin Atlantic only charges 50,000 miles for the same exact flight and $6 in taxes and fees. Remember, different airlines charge a different amount of miles and points for the same exact flight. And when they're partnered together, that means you can book their flights between both programs, and you want to compare and contrast which one requires the fewest amount of points. In this case, Virgin Atlantic would give us the fewest amount of miles that they're charging us, and that's why we want to book through Virgin Atlantic. Pulling up their partnership page, Virgin Atlantic and Delta, when you fly from the US to the UK, it's not that good of a deal. The amount of points Virgin Atlantic is going to charge you can vary, and the taxes and fees are a little high, and so we're going to ignore the UK option. And so when you're flying from the US to the UK, you look at this chart, but this is not what this redemption is about. We're not going to be looking at this chart. We're going to be looking at the chart right down below it, which is from the US to the rest of Europe. And this chart is super simple. And so they charge you 50,000 Virgin Atlantic points to fly anywhere in Europe except for the UK. So from the US to anywhere in Europe that Delta flies is 50,000 Virgin Atlantic points. And so that's where we get the 50,000 Virgin Atlantic points from. Super simple, 50,000. As long as you can find that award availability, it's 50,000 Virgin Atlantic points to get from the US over to Europe. Well, now we know why they charge 50,000 Virgin Atlantic points. Let's jump over to the Virgin Atlantic page and run some searches, and I'll show you how to search and find the award availability. So over here on the Virgin Atlantic page, you don't need a login in order to search, but if you do end up booking something on the Virgin Atlantic page, you definitely need a Virgin Atlantic account, which is free to join. What we want to focus on are non-stop Delta flights from the US to Europe. And Delta has a bunch of non-stop flights into Paris and Amsterdam. And so that's what we're going to focus on for this video in particular, but you can definitely try out other European cities that Delta flies into non-stop from the US as well if you want to. And so in our first search here, we're going to put Detroit to Paris. We're going to search one way. Searching one ways first is just way easier. So let's search one way first. We're going to put in a random date like February 8th. Let's leave it for one passenger now. We want to click on show flexible dates and then click on advanced search. Down here, you'll have the option to pick points. We want to make sure points is selected. and then click on upper class, which is AKA international business class. And let's go ahead and hit search. After we hit search, this is the result for the entire week. And what we're looking for is 50,000 Virgin Atlantic points and $6 in taxes and fees. And obviously our results do not show this. But I have a trick that I learned from the guys over at Frequent Miler, that if you go into the URL box here and change flexible dates to flexible-calendar, and then hit search, it'll give you an entire month view of award availability, which is way better than seeing just week by week. So looking at the availability on February here for Detroit to Paris, what we're trying to find is the 50,000 points and $6 in taxes and fees, and that's available on February 20th and February 27th. Let's go ahead and click on February 20th. And as you can see here, Detroit to Paris Charles de Gaulle, 50,000 miles plus $5.60 one way per person in Delta One business class. And this is exactly what we're looking for. But that was pretty easy. Sometimes when you're searching for some of these flights, you'll get this error. Sorry, no reward flights are available for your search. Some flights don't operate every day. Try selecting flexible dates to see more availability. And so the reason why you're getting this is that the week that you're searching for that award availability, there's nothing available. What you need to do is move your date to the following week and check if there's award availability there, or the week before to check if there's award availability there. This is where the flexibility aspect of things comes into play, because sometimes Virgin Atlantic will see that Delta One award availability, sometimes they won't. There's really no rhyme or reason why this happens, or why sometimes Virgin Atlantic sees some of the seats and sometimes they don't. It's just really trial and error, and you have to just change the different dates to different weeks to check and see if there's any award availability. So I'm gonna move this to the week before and see what happens. And so in this case, on February 27th, there is award availability, and this is good. Your goal is to find any sort of award availability so that you can change the URL, remember, to calendar up top, so that you can see the entire month view and kind of skim through the dates and see which dates show 50,000 Virgin Atlantic points and $6 in taxes and fees. So that kind of unlocks the calendar for us. January 15th also show 50,000 points and $6 in taxes and fees. And there's really nothing in December. Sometimes you'll find these flights that cost a little bit more than 50,000 points because they have a connecting flight. So for example, this one says 58,000 points and $21 in taxes and fees. That's telling us that we have a connection flight into Amsterdam and then Amsterdam down to Paris. So that's why it costs a little bit more than 50,000 points and a little bit more in taxes and fees, but it still gets you there at a reasonably priced. So finding award availability can be tricky, but sometimes Delta releases the floodgates and opens up a ton of award availability. And it's kind of tough to know because it's unadvertised and you really don't know until you actually do the search. One way you can get alerted for whenever these floodgates to these Delta One award availability opens up is to subscribe to Thrifty Traveler Premium. Thrifty Traveler Premium is the sponsor for today's video. If you're not familiar with Thrifty Traveler Premium, they take the legwork out of searching for cheap flights, including premium cabin flights, as well as mistake fares and award alerts to use your miles and points for your redemption. The way that Thrifty Traveler Premium works is that you select your home airport and they'll send you all the deals from your home airport, whether there are cash deals, mistake fares, or award availability from your home airport. Thrifty Traveler Premium covers 200 US and Canadian cities, is $60 per year, but if you use my code MAX10 and the link down in the description down below, you get $10 off your first year, making it just $50 for the entire year of getting flight deals, mistake fares, and award availability into your inbox. Check out the link down in the description down below. So once you find that award availability, you can just transfer your credit card points over to Virgin Atlantic and complete the booking on the Virgin Atlantic page. So that's how you make this redemption, but there are some opportunities to maximize this redemption. And so the first way to maximize this redemption is that oftentimes Virgin Atlantic has transfer bonuses, and sometimes those transfer bonuses are 30% transfer bonuses. And so instead of a 1-to-1 transfer ratio, it's a 1 to 1.3 transfer ratio. With that transfer bonus, that takes it down to just 39,000 Virgin Atlantic points to get on that Delta One flight from the US to Europe, which is an awesome deal. And so keep a lookout for those transfer bonuses. Those transfer bonuses are hard to predict, but sometimes they come around and you're able to find that award availability. Then you can transfer your points over to Virgin Atlantic and just book that Delta One flight for just 39,000. The second way to maximize this redemption is that if you find that award availability and you're still a little bit unsure, or if you need to transfer your points, then you can call Virgin Atlantic to hold the award space. This is not a guaranteed thing, but in some cases, Virgin Atlantic would be willing to hold your award space for 24 hours. So that gives you time to transfer your points, make sure your points show up in your Virgin Atlantic account, and then make the redemption on the Virgin Atlantic page. And the last and final option to maximize this redemption is that if you can find a flight on the new Airbus A330neo or the Airbus 350 or the Boeing 767 that has been retrofitted, then you can potentially get to experience the newer Delta One product, which looks something like this. On the Airbus planes, they have the suite doors, whereas the Boeing planes do not have the suite doors, but at least it's still their newer Delta One product. So keep a lookout for those planes. I'll drop a bunch of links down in the description down below, and check out those links if you want more information on how to make this redemption. As always, comment below if you have any questions, and if you like miles and points content like this, remember to hit the like and subscribe button down below, and I'll see you guys on the next one.